Live. I wonder if there we go. I was thinking maybe we're going to have a live stream issue because of our friends at CrowdStrike or some cloud provider downstream. I guess not. Hey, listen, we're not talking about rats today. We're not talking about. We are going to talk about CrowdStrike a little bit. We're talking about a lot of things. But good morning, good afternoon, good night, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Data Center Podcast. Episode number, let's hear it, guys.
26.
26, yes. I'm Matt Kimball. I am here with my good friends, Will Townsend and Paul Smith-Goodson. And we're here to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that is IT, data center related. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get going, a couple things. We're going to say some crazy stuff. We're going to say some funny stuff. We might even say some insightful stuff. But don't take any of this stuff as investment advice or any other kind of direction as to how you should look at companies. This is for entertainment purposes only, even though we're correct on occasion. That's part two. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe to us and you follow us. If you don't like, just go up on X and write a whole bunch of nasty stuff about Will Townsend. Okay, that's the way this works.
I can take it.
So, hey, listen, guys, thanks for jumping in. Before we get going with what we're going to talk about, which is a lot, want to hit on what's going on with CrowdStrike. I made a joke at the beginning, but this is really a big deal. Will, being our security and resilience guy, I figure it's a good idea to kind of go a little impromptu and let you take the stage for a couple minutes and hit on this.
Yeah, so thanks, Matt. So this is late breaking just over the past several hours. And actually, George Kurtz, the CEO of CrowdStrike, weighed in on X about 4 hours ago, kind of an unapologetic kind of weigh in. But basically, and I'm digging into this further. And by the way, for our viewers, I'll be posting something a little more lengthy on LinkedIn and X. But I did share some initial insights on X. But this appears to be a flubbed EDR update, and it's tied to Microsoft. So you can imagine being tied to Microsoft, the extent is huge. This has affected airline travel. So 3 major airlines in the United States have been grounded, and including my go-to American Airlines. Global stock exchanges have been affected, as well as credit card processing. So for those of you that aren't familiar with EDR, this is an endpoint security solution. And this was what CrowdStrike claims to be just a simple update. But in doing this, it's created the blue screen of death. And even Patrick Moorhead, our fearless leader, got some sort of message at the high rise that he lives at that their systems are offline as well. So This is massive, Matt, and Paul. And when you think about the reputation and opportunity cost that's going to result, this could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So not a lot of info is being shared from CrowdStrike, but like I said, I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper and weigh in. But this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. As I sit here on my MacBook and participate in this podcast, it's kind of interesting. Paul and I were talking before you came into the studio. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that's shocking to me is that so many large companies and so many large IT infrastructures, and I'm sure a lot of this has to do with what we run in the cloud versus what we run on-prem.
Right.
Those config files, those sys files, those files that are driving, servers and client devices. God help those that have BitLocker enabled, by the way. That's because it's going to hose them over. It's amazing how much we trust. We just simply trust, right? Our cloud providers, our security providers, to not that they did anything wrong or did the right thing, but how much control they give over our fate as IT organizations and as users. I joke about the Mac. It could happen to the Mac environment just as easily.
Sure.
But it's kind of crazy. And I think it's going to be more than the hundreds of millions. I think it's going to be measured in the billions.
Could be billions. Yeah. Especially when you think about financial services and stock trading and with my early tweet, I mean, it's going viral. We're up to almost 1,000 views on that initial tweet. And Patrick Moorhead, our fearless leader, has weighed in as well. And lots of folks on that thread are asking about, lawsuits. And I think that's a foregone conclusion, unfortunately, for CrowdStrike. But the dust is still settling here, so I never want to jump into the the mix without having all the facts. But I'll be weighing in more. So for our viewers, check my LinkedIn and Twitter feeds throughout the day today.
I'll tell you one last thing, and Paula, you can tell me if I'm crazy on this, but hey, maybe there's something more to this than simply CrowdStrike pushing out wrong or a poorly formed EDR update, right? This seems pretty darn sizable. But anyway.
Yeah, I've got a vision of somebody reading a document explaining how to do this update, but he can't understand it because it's written in Chinese.
I was checking for my tinfoil hat. Even better, Paul. Thank you. All right, let's jump in. We got a really jam-packed show. So let's hit on this. We're going to talk Juniper. We're talking Oracle. We always seem to talk about Oracle. I don't know why. IBM, HPE, AWS, AI. We're going to start playing this game. We should have a drinking game for listeners or follow or watchers to see every time they figure out it's Paul's headline, they take a drink.
Right.
They get drunk pretty quickly, but hey, who knows, right?
Like the Seinfeld game, Matt. Like when you saw Kramer, you'd yell Kramer and drink a beer, right?
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, let's jump right in. We're going to start with you, Will, and we're going to hit on Juniper. AI Ops. What the heck is going on with AI Ops?
Well, I mean, so this press release sort of really kind of grabbed my attention because Juniper is claiming the first AI Ops enablement of WAN routing. So as I dug into it further, really what they're talking about is a new solution called Routing Assurance, which it unifies the ability to monitor campus, branch, edge, and data center operations. And so they're claiming that with Mist and Marvis. And so if you're unfamiliar, Juniper acquired Mist Systems about 4 years ago. And it's a very, very strong AI-enabled assurance and networking solution. But what the claim really is about is that they're the first to be able to provide end-to-end AI ops assurance across all of these different domains. And so that is, in theory, very compelling when you think about the simplicity and the complexity of having to do that, and typically using multiple dashboards and that sort of thing to do things, especially in OT environments. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later in the podcast. But on the surface, it seems, very, very powerful. And, I think it's another reason why Hewlett Packard Enterprise wants to bring Juniper into the fold. And so that transaction, subject to regulator approval, should close by the end of the calendar year. And then HPE has a very strong AI, platform that really enhances what they've already had with HPE Aruba for many years. So that's my take on it.
So do you see this as maybe going a little bit kind of adjacent to this, or a little bit off script a little bit, but given HPE's Aruba portfolio and what they've done and kind of bringing in Juniper, do you see this? This is obviously somewhat complementary to what HPE has with Aruba. Do you see this as a how do you see this alongside Aruba? I guess is where I'm going with.
No, it's a great question, Matt. And so, Aruba will be the first to admit that they haven't had, the depth and strength in the data center like others, like Juniper have had. So I view this as being very complementary. Now, there is also at the same time some redundance, right? And I've written a research note on this, and Patrick and I had the opportunity to meet one-on-one with. When the announcement was made with both Antonio and Rami, the CEO of Juniper. But the other interesting thing is, both of those executives state that there's very little customer overlap.
Yeah.
And so there may be some product rationalization that has to occur, but from an overall addressable market situation, it appears to be a very positive thing for the company. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but
Yeah.
I've been so focused on CrowdStrike the last 4 hours.
Let me ask this a different way. Do you see, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, not different, it's a different question, but do you
Okay.
see, when you talk, obviously there's always a little bit of overlap when it comes to functionality, right? But do you
Yeah.
see longer term one networking solution from HPE that brings the best of Aruba, the best of Juniper, and kind of into one platform? Or do you think these run as separate kind of offerings addressing their separate customers?
I believe it's a consolidated move, Matt, long term. It's just, from a simplification perspective and a consumption perspective, in
Yeah.
a channel sales motion perspective.
Yeah.
There have been examples in the past of a bifurcated strategy, like with Cisco and Meraki, that they were sort of separate entities for a while, and then now that's been collapsed. And customers need simplicity, but more importantly, companies like HPE, they're almost 100% channel driven, and you got to make it simple for channel salespeople to sell the product. So a long way to answer your question, but I see that consolidating over time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fun to watch. All right, let's keep this show moving. Keep it fun. Keep it lively. Let's jump into Oracle. Seems to be, as I said, something that company we talk about every week. So just recently, just in the past week, Oracle announced Exadata Exascale. And what is that? It is essentially, so here's the challenge. Let me start with that. I'm going to go quickly for the sake of time, but let's start with the challenge, right? Oracle database, #1 database in the world. And it's not even close, right? By far, it is the #1 database in the world, platform in the world. It's used by virtually every Fortune 500, even in the rise of PL SQL, or not PL SQL, or PostgreSQL, even in the rise of NoSQL platforms. Oracle database is still far and away #1, and it's #1 for a reason. It's so darned powerful. There's so much you can do. I grew up on Oracle database. And learning it and then managing it and managing a budget for it. And I can tell you a couple things. #1, it's unmatched in terms of functionality. #2, it's so expensive that it has been virtually impossible for smaller companies to really appreciate all the functionality and capabilities built into Oracle database because they can't afford it. And that's not a slight against Oracle. That's why Microsoft SQL Server was so popular, because it came in as a cheaper alternative. Mm-hmm. With that said, Oracle, as they kind of move more and more into the cloud, they understand that there's this untapped market for Oracle database. They've provided a number of cloud services, but Exadata Exascale comes along, and it provides all of that capability as a cloud service to virtually everybody, right? So I'm a small startup. I want to do all these things around data management that my larger competitors are doing, but I can't do them because I can't afford it. This now allows me to do that. So it's a loose coupling of all of this great Exadata hardware that Oracle has, some re-architecting, some technical capabilities built in with Oracle database built on top of it. So I, as a small company, can go in, buy an Oracle database instance, pay a fraction of the cost of what I would do if I did it on-prem, but still have the performance capabilities of on-prem through things they did through SQL offload and RDMA and a number of kind of things they built into the offering. Like you will, I did a write-up on this, and I've been interviewed in a couple of pieces. In the show notes, you'll be able to go read up on it. Really cool offering, really levels the playing field. And I think it really signals how, this is a new Oracle, right? It's not just about live on the royalties of Oracle database off of a kind of fixed set of customers. It's about expanding the market market reach of Oracle database and going down market. Really cool story. Interesting to see how this is going to play out and how much share it steals from the on-prem Oracle database.
I was going to say, Matt, I wanted to stop you and ask you. I mean, do you feel like, I mean, given the performance and the consumptive model, will this cannibalize the cash cow?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something I kind of posit, right? I mean, because when you look at this, I mean, Oracle's claiming, I think it's like 95% less cost to run an Oracle Exadata Exascale database on Exadata Exascale instance than it is to run on-prem. Now, there are reasons why I run my databases on-prem, right? There's a reason why I think it's upwards of 70% of the data still sits on-prem and only 30% is in the cloud, right? And so I think for a lot of those customers that have built that on-prem Oracle presence, it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. And by the way, those are such complex kind of installs on-prem. It's hard to replicate that in the cloud. So I don't believe you're going to see as much cannibalization. But longer term, you know, I think there's this notion that longer term, this all kind of balances out, right? Maybe I do some to, you know, Exadata Exascale, but as I do that, I gain so much more in volume that it doesn't matter. But anyway.
What about existing customers, Matt, migrating to Oracle's new service? I mean, you got cost constraints and it's a complex process.
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah, there's a play for this for leveraging Oracle database on Exadata Exascale to kind of call it the hybrid database environment, if you will, right? To kind of leverage for kind of greenfield, you know, kind of those new opportunities that exist within a company. There's also the opportunity for existing on-prem to have like departmental level databases kind of run on Exadata Exascale instead of using, say, MySQL or you know, some other kind of open source database at the departmental level. That's another opportunity. And I believe you're going to see a lot of growth within that space, right? I can tell you when I was in state IT, and we had our database license, we would tell, you know, smaller agencies, which would be like a department within in an enterprise, we would tell them, look, go do SQL Server, go do MySQL, and you would cringe because MySQL at the time was very open source and open source was different in the early 2000s than it is now, right? We'd cringe, but it was the free to cheap alternative. You don't have to do that anymore, right? You allow people to build on the same database platform, right? So the databases you're building, the indexes you're building, the PL SQL you're writing is very transferable from one to the other. So I can certainly
the UI is the same, so there isn't like, you know, any sort of like need for retraining, right? So there's lots of value there. Yeah.
So fun story. It's going to be fun to watch. So with that said, I'm going to caution our viewers at home that now might be your cue to have your first drink because we're transitioning to I Double Decrypt Dare You. And I don't know who would have come up with this title, but Paul, is that you?
Maybe, Paul.
Yeah, that happens to be mine. I did a pretty deep dive on Quantum Safe last year in Forbes, and IBM recognized that there were some deficiencies in it, and it's not deficiencies from design, but just strictly because it's a large product. It covers a lot of ground and a lot of scope, and they greatly improved it. And if someone doesn't know what Quantum Safe is, back in 1994, Peter Shor was with Bell Labs, and he developed a quantum algorithm that could factor large prime numbers. So obviously, that was one of the things that gave emphasis to quantum research and realized that quantum actually was valuable. But it also kind of is scary because RSA encryption is vulnerable to Shor's algorithm. we don't have a computer that can run, it's large enough to run that encryption, but we're projecting it in maybe 5, 7, 10 years. Quantum computers will be able to bust RSA encryption,
Wow.
and you can imagine what that would do to society with bad guys running around, opening up all the encrypted files that we've got. It could even, on the extremes, lead to some type of global financial meltdown. So, but anyway, quantum safe technology is built to go out and take a look at the systems and look at the classical encryption and replace it with post-quantum encryption to protect it. The need for it is obviously based on what's going to happen down the road. Classical computers, I've seen quotations that it would take classical computers like several trillion years to bust encryption. And when you look at quantum, I mean, it could probably do it like in a couple of hours, depending on what size it was and everything. So.
So
There is even though the larger computers are down the road, there's a threat to encrypted data now, and it's called harvest now, decrypt later, and the bad guys steal encrypted assets and hold on to it in hopes that they'll make some money or create whatever they need down the road. So Quantum Safe now has got features in it that prevents that from happening. But it's kind of started off, I think I told you, NIST back in 2016 had asked for submissions for quantum cryptography, and they had like 82 submissions that came in. IBM had 3 out of the 4 finalists that were selected. Now they're supposed to announce which encryptions they're going to be using, what they're going to standardize on. We were expecting it in July, but it looks like it may be probably August before we actually hear. And but once we get those, I mean, there's no reason that people can't start planning for quantum safe. The new concept added to quantum safe is something called crypto agility. And that enables a company to do rapid updates on cryptographic systems as they evolve. I mean, like classical is going to be replaced with this lattice concept of encryption. Lattice quantum encryption may be replaced with something else. So we need the capability to keep adjusting it and watching for problems as it comes up. And quantum safe now with crypto agility will support a mix of classical and quantum proof encryption. So it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So Paul, we talk about RSA encryption, right? This goes beyond just classical computers, right? Or classic computers. I mean, when you talk about quantum safe, are you looking at all of those? I think across, kind of devices that are in, military equipment and financial services that, non-traditional. Does this?
Manufacturing automation as well, I would assume that.
I can't speak to the military, obviously, but it'll be able to handle just about everything within an enterprise, and also up into the supply chains. You have to make sure your supply chains are safe too, obviously. So
Sure, yeah.
I've been taking a look at theirs, and from what I understand, don't hold me to this, they've got about 35,000 different critical applications that will have quantum safe status, and it's a multi-year process to do this. I mean, it's basically a transformative operation. I mean, take 2 or 3 years to
Oh yeah.
do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Every time you kind of talk on this stuff, I get more and more worried about our
I,
future.
I was going to say, I do too. Like,
Well,
just,
talking
what
about,
quantum can do. Yeah.
yeah, this should actually make you feel a little bit better about it because
No,
quantum safe with crypto agility will definitely help improve our status.
yeah, I'm not there yet, but thank you for trying to talk me off the ledge. Uh, let's jump into Brazil because that's something everybody likes to talk about. What
Yeah.
for Utah? HPE helps Nice Brazil unify branch and data center connectivity. Holy hell, that's a mouthful. What are you talking about here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, before we get started, I'm going to let our viewers know that actually my father was born in Brazil on the banks of the Amazon River in a Ford Motor Company place called Fordlandia Para in the south of Brazil.
Oh,
So
oh,
this is sort of near and dear to my heart. But this is with NICE. And so NICE is an Italian multinational that focuses on business security and automation products. And so we're going to talk about Hewlett Packard Enterprise again in Aruba. One of the challenges has been automating and bringing connectivity to their factory footprint. And if you know anything about operational technology environments, and I've written numerous papers, published research notes, have penned Forbes articles on this subject, OT has been, for the most part, very disjointed, unconnected, a mishmash of modalities. And this creates a lot of challenges, not only from a connectivity standpoint, but from a security standpoint. And if you look back over the last several years and look at some of the most, significant, breaches, certainly you could say that a lot of those are identity related, but a lot of them are also IoT related because these devices are headless and they're difficult to manage and have visibility to. So, but what NICE is doing is they're embracing both Aruba's CX6300 switches from a data center perspective and to facilitate campus access, but they're also using new Wi-Fi 6 and Aruba Central devices to bring connectivity to their manufacturing facilities. And what's really nice about Aruba Central, and again, this is another thing that I've written about in the past, is that it gives you a single pane of glass so that you can manage connectivity between IT and OT environments. And that's a very unique challenge. And what you see a lot of companies doing is being very prescriptive because of just what I mentioned in OT environments and the headless nature of IoT and that sort of thing, having sort of a different set of dashboards and connectivity and security solutions to manage that. But what's interesting about what this use case highlights is sort of the consolidated way of managing that, because traditionally, we've had operators, managing the carpeted areas of enterprises, but in manufacturing, it was sort of an afterthought, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this is a really strong use case. It sort of points to what can happen when you bring those two together. And in fact, someone from NICE who is running this particular facility in Sao Paulo is stating, basically, we immediately noticed an increase in network speed as well as improved visibility with respect to what they're doing with manufacturing automation. And so, this is Wi-Fi. I'm beginning to see a lot of LTE and 5G deployments of connectivity for manufacturing automation. I wrote a Forbes article about a recent visit with John Deere in Waterloo. I think it was Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I thought this was a really interesting use case to point out, and just and I also wanted to highlight some of the challenges that IT and OT environments have with connectivity. So.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I have a brother who is an engineer in the OT space, and we joke. It's like I'm the pocket protector guy, and he's the hard hat guy.
Right.
They're super technical folks in OT, and they do a lot of incredible stuff, but they consume data and they understand data differently than you and I do on the IT side. And bridging that gap is really difficult. Managing connectivity, managing the systems, moving data around, and the way you look and visualize data is completely different. I think the ability to create that kind of console that can be used by both, say, an operator that sits within a water treatment facility or a manufacturing
Mhm.
floor, or a plant operator versus an IT person that sits in an air-conditioned room. I
Yeah,
mean, that's a hard feat to accomplish, right?
it is.
But there's so much value that can be derived from that, though. It's such a cool story to tell.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so you're not going to have to drink on this next one because it's a boring headline. Hint, hint. But as we move, and speaking
Is it
of,
Oracle? Matt, is it Oracle again?
it's not, but it's silicon focused, so it's something else I talk about quite a bit. And that talking about AWS and Graviton. So, and really it's about ARM, right? So for those that don't know, Graviton is the CPU of choice for AWS. And like AWS, Azure has Cobalt, Google has Axion. Everybody has their own kind of flavor of CPU. But AWS has been a pioneer in kind of bringing ARM into the data center. And with Graviton, they bought a company back in 2016, I think it was, or 2017. And they started rolling out ARM to handle very lightweight applications, web servers, gaming platforms, video streaming, kind of not really compute intensive workloads, maybe more bandwidth focused or some other kind of requirements. So kind of scale out versus scale up. And they've been very successful. And Graviton has hit about 25% of AWS's install base around infrastructure, which is significant, as the other 75% is shared between AMD and Intel on the x86 side. But it's been very focused in what it supports, just those kind of scale out workloads. Graviton 4, which was announced at reInvent in November of 23 and just GA'd last week, represents something different. It's a different approach that AWS has taken in saying we're not just supporting just these kind of scale out workloads, cloud native workloads, light SQL or no SQL database and kind of unstructured data stuff. This is going after that and the scale up. So very compute intensive workloads, SQL databases, heavy SQL databases, AI, HPC, all the different variants of HPC, whether it's memory intensive, compute intensive, you name the workload, we can run it on Graviton 4. So it's like nothing, there is no kind of walled garden around x86, traditional x86 workloads anymore. AWS has said we're going to deploy Graviton whenever and wherever we can, and we're doing it for a couple of reasons. One, we can control the design of this. We designed this thing in-house, so we're designing it specifically to our thermal, our power, and our performance requirements, and that balance you have to meet to get the best return on your investment, number one. And number two, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to do this than it is to.
I was going to ask you, that's got to be their strategy, right? It's got to provide equal capability, but come in under what AMD and Intel are doing, right?
Yeah. The more I can lower my cost in providing these services, the greater my margin's going to be, right? And AWS has figured out that formula, as has Azure, as has Google, as has Oracle, and Aliyun and a number of other cloud providers. So this is a really big deal. So where AWS was going after kind of limited workloads and kind of limited in scope as far as deploying Graviton goes, and they reached 25% of deployment around their infrastructure. Now that all bets are off, I suspect they're going to go very aggressive with Graviton 4, and that's going to push that 25% deployment upwards of 50% easily. And they're going to steal more and more share from the x86 suppliers in the AWS environments. This is a big deal for enterprise IT for a couple of reasons. One, they're going to start using ARM-based instances for all of their workloads, right? Everything is off the table at this point. They're not going to know it at first in some cases, right? Because they're just going to go with the cheapest instance available, which is going to be Graviton. They're going to realize this thing works for them and it works well, and it's going to impact their buying behavior eventually as it applies to their on-prem data centers, right? So if I'm in the enterprise, if I'm an enterprise IT guy and I go, or woman, I don't mean that, and I go, I can run this thing on an ARM-based instance in AWS for 25% cheaper than I can on x86. My performance isn't impacted. My reliability is not impacted. My security is not impacted. If I can save 25%,
No-brainer.
but
Yeah, no-brainer.
it's on-prem, right? That's what I suspect is going to happen longer term with all of this. And I suspect it's going to be a big play for ARM long term. So Graviton 4 is big for AWS. As Neil Armstrong said, it's kind of a giant step, or one great step for him, but it's a bigger step for IT in general, I think, in kind of looking at the shift in how we view compute platforms and what we deploy. My 2 cents.
Yeah.
Paul, you look either perplexed or interested, or I'm not
Or
sure.
asleep.
Or disinterested.
Yeah, well, most instances, the Graviton is supported by Linux, but not all the software. Some software may be a challenge because not all software is optimized for the ARM.
That's right. That's right. And I think Paul, to what you're saying, that's the barrier to ARM hitting the enterprise data center sooner. You've got to wait for this larger software ecosystem to coalesce and embrace ARM as a first-class citizen, if you will. And if not optimized, just at least kind of provide base enablement of the ARM instructions or the RISC instruction set, which is going to happen, and it's happening more and more. Oracle's databases can run on ARM natively. VMware runs natively on ARM. They've enabled it for ESX. It's happening. But it's going to be fun to watch because you're right. The larger kind of line of business environment certainly has to embrace it. So, in the spirit of moving along, I want everybody to pick up their cups because we're moving on to our next topic, which is titled "Brain for Bots." Drink.
Okay.
I think you're up, Paul.
Yeah, I ran across an interesting paper. The title was, I remember right, Embodied Neuromorphic Artificial Intelligence for Robotics. And it was kind of interesting. I've got an interest in robots and AI together. I think that's going to be one of the big things that comes along in a short time, I think. But it's going to make a big difference in productivity within our industries and everything. But robotic technologies they're becoming more essential for human productivity. You've seen videos of robots lifting crates and carrying them around and doing that type of thing. So they're going to be going from personal to all kinds of industrial applications, I think. The problem with today's robots is that they don't have the ability to efficiently interact with the environment, and when there's changes, they don't respond appropriately. And this paper centers around advances in neuromorphic computing and the use of spiking neural networks to mimic how the brain works, and it kind of gives looking at giving robots more of a embodied intelligence using this. The difference between neuromorphic and classical, if you don't know it, neuromorphic kind of copies the brain's components. It uses neural networks and event-driven processing. It's highly efficient, really good at pattern recognition and real-time things. Of course, classical computers are based on binary logic and sequential processing and that type of thing.
So, Paul, are we looking at the rise of androids?
Actually, we are, I think. Yeah. There's still a lot
Elon wants to build one and market one, right? Am I mistaken?
That's right. Yeah.
Elon is one.
Yeah.
I think Elon is an android. That would explain a lot.
but there's still a lot of challenges left. Like I say, they can't interact with their environment and respond to the changes. And neuromorphic computing, I think, is going to help do that because it's more flexible. It, mimics the way we think, and that'll help, I think, with that robotic interface. But I don't think it's too long before we're going to see some interesting robots come along.
We are more and more seeing the rise of the Jetsons come to real life. I mean, it's kind of crazy, you know.
Yeah.
With Rosie as our servant slash maid slash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to. I think neuromorphic AI is going to help. It depends on spikes. When I get a certain amount of input, then that's when they send out a spike, and they're really sudden, and they're not like continuous signals like we normally use, like a regular neural networks. It depends on the timing.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Oh, man. Again, I don't know if I feel good or bad after your comment. I see Arnold Schwarzenegger on one shoulder. I see Rosie on the other, or C-3PO on the other. And it's like, I'm not sure what we're on top of this. This is, yeah.
Doomsday Paul, right?
No. Hey,
no, it's
listen.
fascinating though. The quantum, like, and how quantum can eventually touch so many aspects of our lives. It's just, it's gonna be pretty cool to see it all unfold.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we're coming up to the end, and but before we go, I want to throw one thing out there for you, and we're going to go quickly on this because we're coming up to the end. But one question for you both, and I'll start so you guys can chew on your responses. Okay. All right. So let's say Paul Smith Goodson is on death row for some horrific act. Maybe he invented an android that went on that time traveled and went on a killing spree or something. I don't know. Let's just say, right? And now he's on death row. You have one meal before you meet your maker tomorrow. What is that meal? And I want you to be a little bit more specific. You can't just say shrimp and lobster tail. What is it? I'll start and give you guys a couple minutes, okay? So mine is going to be a ribeye steak, cooked medium with some rosemary butter, side of French fries, crinkle cut French fries, a Diet Coke, and a chocolate fribble from Friendly's up here in Massachusetts. Business. That is my meal, and I'll be happy with it. And I don't need a dessert. Will, you're up next. Paul looks like he's still chewing on this, or he's.
No, I know. I've got mine nailed.
Oh, go!
I knew mine immediately too. So let's let Paul go.
Mine is not complicated. You'd think it'd be weird and complicated, but it's not. Mine would be a bowl of hot cream of wheat with lots of sugar, butter, and a glass of milk.
Oh, that is so good.
Is that just a big F you to the man? Is that what you're doing with that, or is that really what you love?
Yeah, no, that's good.
All right. Well, what do you got?
I gotta say paella, and and it's a form of paella. It's called a feijoada, and it's a black bean dish. It's Brazilian, so I'm going to talk about my family another time again. Uh-huh. But it's something that my grandmother taught me many years ago, and I make it every Thanksgiving for my kids, and they always beg for it. It's got a lot of different little meats, black beans, rice. It's sort of a peasant. They called it a peasant dish. It was all the leftovers at the end of the week. So anyway, it'd be a feijoada and a huge piece of carrot cake. As a kid, I would ask my mom to make carrot cakes for my birthdays. I was not the sheet cake guy. That was too pedestrian for me. So it was always a carrot cake. So and it's just still my dessert of choice at 57 years old. So
I love it. That's a great choice. I have to give oatmeal the win, though. This is
I think so too.
Came out from I don't know where, but man, you gotta I got to give you the win on that one, Paul.
I tell you what, when I was growing up, it was my mom and myself. We were very poor. The street we lived on was High Street in Little Rock, which is now Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Mhm.
And on occasions when she had a little extra money, I got to have cream of wheat.
I got it. I got it. Okay, I see that. Wow, now you really get the win. We can't even laugh at it anymore.
Yeah.
You
I know. I'm getting a tear in the eye.
value to it. You little
I
trouble.
thought my story brought a tear to the eye, but I'm gonna go with Paul with his story.
Man,
That's
I'm
awesome.
just
I love
gluttonous. You guys both made me like an idiot. Anyway,
that. Yeah, the Diet Coke and like you were very descriptive, Matt, with your
Hey,
glass.
it's all superficial relative to you guys. Holy heck. Anyway, with that said, hey, we're coming to the end. Guys, it's a fun conversation, covered a lot of topics. If you're out there watching us, keep an eye out for Arnold Schwarzenegger hanging over your shoulder. Paul may have sent him from the future.
Yeah. Or time cop, you know.
But, thank you for a great conversation. Again, if you liked us, hit the like button. If you didn't like us, too bad. Truly don't take anything we say as investment advice. Don't go selling off stock and reinvesting somewhere else, or taking your money out of savings and investing in any one of the companies we talked about because of what we said. You're a fool if you did, and we can't be held accountable. Until next time, though, thank you. And guys, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. We'll do this again.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.